Hello and welcome to this exclusive TW Premium webinar for your eyes and ears only on glass box brands. In an age of radical transparency, your internal culture is becoming your brand. Time to take action. That's what we're going to talk about for the next 25 minutes or so. I am David Mattin. If you've listened to one of these webinars before, you know me, Head of Global Trends and Insights here at TrendWatching. I've taken time away from the feverish work going on the 2018 trend report, which we'll be sending out to you guys in November, to talk to you guys right now about glass box brands. Again, you pretty much know you can always get me if you need me at david@trendwatching.com. You can find me on Twitter. And if you'd like to talk among yourselves about what we're talking about today on Twitter, we'd love you to use the hashtag glassboxbrands. So let's just dive right in. TrendWatching quarterly number 3 has rolled around pretty quickly, I think you'll agree. First of all, we gave you truthful consumerism back in March. In June, we hit you with the future of customer experience. Time marches on, it has a way of doing that. We've been in the lab thinking hard. The output is this TrendWatching quarterly glass box brands. And I just want to walk you through, I think the best thing to do is walk you through, as always, just the process, some of the thinking that led us to this idea that I want to share with you today. We published it on Tuesday, Inside Premium. So this is going to be a super high level account of the idea. If you want more, if you want to look at more examples, if you want more statistics, all of that kind of, if you want the full fat version of glassbox brands, dive into Premium if you haven't already, download the PDF. It's all there for you. Everything and more is there. So yeah, that thinking that brought us to this trend. We've obviously had our eyes and ears all over the consumer arena, as we always do. We've got our thousands of spotters all around the world. And we were just intrigued by a cluster of spottings, not exactly innovations, but more incidents, really, that we've all seen play out this year. So first of all, you know, Uber hit by a ton of scandals, the sexism scandal, a culture of bullying and sexism inside Uber. Of course, there's been ongoing rumblings about driver welfare and the way they treat their drivers. And then more recently, we were even treated to the spectacle via a smartphone video of Travis Kalanick, the CEO, actually more or less shouting at an Uber driver who dared to raise the subject with him of driver pay and welfare. So a ton of stuff happened around Uber, culminating in this video really of Travis shouting at one of his own drivers. Travis was gone pretty soon after that. He was forced out by investors. Earlier in the year, though, it doesn't stop there. We saw United airline staff drag a passenger off a plane. Okay, again, captured on a smartphone video. Not so very long ago, before smartphones, not the type of thing you ever would have got to see. Now there's a smartphone video going viral of United Airlines staff choosing to take this action to actually drag a man all the way down the aisle and kick him off the plane, and United took some heat for that incident. But not all bad news, not all bad incidents. We also saw this amazing story about the CEO of HSBC in Taiwan walking a gay employee of his down the aisle when her father refused to attend her wedding because he disapproved of her same-sex relationship. Okay, again, perhaps once upon a time, the type of story that you wouldn't have got to hear about, but now you do. So you put all those stories together and so many more that, you know, I could share with you, and it just set us thinking. And that's essentially the story of TrendWatching. As you guys know, we have an innovation-focused methodology. We're looking out to the innovations, in this case, the changes that are taking place in the consumer arena, and asking ourselves, what do these mean? We're looking at them in a structured way, trying to join the dots between them, and ask ourselves, what can we draw from this in terms of lessons on where consumerism is heading? And we looked at this cluster of examples, which on the surface of it are just a collection of different stories about the business arena and the consumer arena, but which, if you dig a little deeper or probe a little deeper, feel connected somehow. There's something connecting them all. We were sort of drawing lines between them, and it just set us thinking, what is going on here? And our answer to what is going on here with these examples and others is essentially this. A brand used to be a black box, now it's a glass box. Now that might feel an incredibly intangible statement right now, and you might be asking yourself, how on earth have you gone from, you know, Travis shouting at his driver and United Airlines dragging someone down the aisle of a plane to this statement about black boxes and glass boxes? A brand used to be a black box, now it's a glass box. So really everything I want to do now for the next 20 minutes or so is unpack that idea, unpack why it is such a shift in the nature of what it means to be a brand and in consumerism, and why it should be on your radar. And then crucially, as always, what can you do about it? How should you respond to this trend? So let's have a look more closely at this idea about black boxes and glass boxes. Let's walk through that. So I'm starting off by saying a brand used to be a black box. A business essentially used to be a black box. What I mean by that is that a business was a black box. For outsiders, it was pretty hard to see what was going on inside. What went on inside was not visible to the outside world. The brand for that business was pretty much whatever the business leaders decided to paint on the outside of the box, okay? So they had a high degree of control about that. They painted their brand on the outside of this black box. Consumers, customers came along, they looked at it, they either liked it or they didn't, okay? Traditionally, that's been the way a business has worked, and in a way that's sort of simpler times. Now, in 2017, a business is a glass box. Outsiders can see right inside. They can see the people in there. They can see what the people are doing. They can even see what the people feel about what they're doing. Okay, now you all intuitively know the reason for that shift, and that is transparency, okay, the radical transparency made possible by a connected world. That's responsible for this shift from a business as a black box to a business as a glass box. Our key idea here is that that shift also represents a major shift in what it means to be a brand. Okay, now what I mean by that is this. Think about what a brand is, and I'm talking about a brand as distinct from a business. Okay, a business is everything, the operations, the entire organization that creates whatever it is it creates. Think about what a brand is specifically. A brand really is just the emotional, associational kind of cluster of touch points that all add up to what a consumer, what a human being, what all those human beings out there feel about you, feel about your organization. That's your brand, okay? Now, as we've said, once upon a time, a business was a black box. You couldn't see what was going on if you were outside. The brand was whatever was painted on the outside of the box. Now, consumers can see all the way into that box. It's a glass box they are looking into because of radical transparency. They can see right inside. They can see what is going on in there. So now the brand is everything that's visible to them, okay? Just like it was before, but now they can look right inside. The brand is everything that's visible to them, and that now means everything, every person, every process, every value that's at work. They can see everything that's going on inside your business because of radical transparency. And when they see it, they're going to feel something about it. That's why this adds up to such a radical shift in what it means to be a brand. Now, there's a word, we can sum this up more kind of succinctly, really. There's a word for what people see when they look right inside your organization, and that is they see your culture. Okay, what they see when they look right inside you is the culture of your organization. When you add up the people, the processes you use, the values, everything, the habits, the traditions, that is your organizational culture. And that's what people are seeing when they look right inside you. So really that leads us to this conclusion that in 2017, your corporate culture, your internal culture is becoming a part of your brand. Because your internal culture is now visible, it's becoming a part of your brand. Now, I don't want to overstate this, of course. There's plenty that goes on inside any organization that even in an age of the glass box, no one gets to find out about, and really essentially no one would ever care about. But in this age of radical transparency, if stuff goes on, or when stuff goes on, that people will want to find out about, right? Whether it's the shenanigans that happen at your Christmas party, or whether it's something huge like the eco footprint of your biggest factory or your biggest plant, like whatever it is, in the end, that information is going to cross out of your four walls and become known to the public. And once people see it, they will feel something about it, and it will then become a part of your brand, part of that cluster of feelings and associations and emotional touch points that form your brand. Once it's visible, people will feel something about it, then it's part of your brand. That's essentially what it adds up to. Okay, so that's a massive shift in the nature of what it means to be a brand. Your internal culture, which used to be essentially private to you, is now becoming a part of the brand that consumers know about and feel when they think about you. Let's have a very quick look at what's driving this shift, and I'll keep it extremely quick because you can dive in yourself to the report and look at in more detail at what we've said is driving this big shift from the black box to the glass box. But essentially, number one, we've talked about it, you know, we've mentioned it already, connectivity, right? You guys know that connectivity, a connected world, is the number one driver of this radical transparency that has created the glass box. That means that people can now see deep inside you. You know, for example, we all know that the culture of sort of bullying and sexism and apparent unpleasantness at Uber was really blown up, really went mad, really became totally visible when one of the employees quite simply, you know, blogged about it, and that blog post went viral. In a connected world, people are writing about their experiences inside their workplace all the time, and the outside world gets to hear about that in ways that they simply didn't before. Connectivity is driving that transparency that's created the glass box. Of course, it wouldn't matter what people could see when they looked inside your organization if they just basically didn't really care either way, whether what they saw was good or bad. But increasingly, we know they do, okay? And this is a big trend that we've talked about endlessly at TrendWatching. You guys talk about endlessly too, I'm sure. We are amid a epic search for, among millions of consumers at least, a more meaningful, a more positive, more ethical, more sustainable kind of consumerism, okay? So now when people look inside a brand, and if they see values and processes that don't align with that search on their part for a better kind of consumerism, that is disturbing to them. That impacts the way they feel about the brand in a pretty profound way. And again, you know, we've talked so much about this at TrendWatching. In a world where consumer status is much more about who I am as a person than what I have, you know, the shift in status from a material model of status to much more a personal, identity-focused model of status. Consumers want to see values that align with theirs when they look inside an organization. And just one snapshot of that shift, I mean, think about the millions of consumers displaying their more ethical, more sustainable, healthier, smarter, more connected values on platforms such as Instagram, right? Clean eating, hashtag 33 million examples of that used so far. We know that consumption now is a story about my identity as a consumer. It's not just about getting more stuff anymore. It hasn't been about that for, you know, decades, years, but this shift is really intensifying. It's about telling the world and telling myself who I am as a person. So when I look inside your organization, I want to see values that align with mine, that turn that story into a positive story. And last driver worth just considering, and again, dive into the report for more on these. You know, we're used to the idea of ethical concern for workers in developing countries, vulnerable workers in emerging economies. People think, you know, textile workers in India or coffee growers in vulnerable situations. we've just seen a whole raft of shifts, right, still playing out around globalization, deglobalization, the rise of populism, automation, rising awareness of growing inequality, that have just broadened the scope of people's ethical concern and their concern for the future, and that have just heightened their demand, really, their expectation that every brand is helping to build a better future, because there are multiple factors now that are helping make the future look pretty scary, right? So consumers are looking to brands to take positive steps and just to be convincing that they are helping to make the future a better place. So you have connectivity, you have rising concern for the ethics and sustainability and values of brands, because I need the brand to tell a good story about me. And then you have a whole raft of recent changes that's just heightening that concern about the future and about what we are doing collectively to make it better. You wrap all those together, and that is profoundly, and those three forces really are profoundly driving this shift to a world in which your internal culture is becoming part of your brand. It's visible, number one, and people care about it, number two. So it's becoming part of how they feel about you as a business. It's becoming part of your brand. Of course, this is just a working model, okay? The black box, glass box model is just that. It's a model, it's a metaphor. Even in 2017, well, put it another way back in the day, a brand wasn't perfectly a black box. Of course, there was still information still leaked, there was still journalism, people still talked. Now in 2017, a brand is not perfectly a glass box. There's still, as I say, plenty that goes on that people don't get to see or hear about. They can't truly see everything that goes on, every person, every value. But this shift is very real and it's very powerful. This model is a useful model when it comes to thinking about the nature of this deep, this profound shift driven by transparency. And this model should spur, I hope, it should provoke some thinking. How do we respond? What does this mean for us? And how do we respond? And this is what I want to come on to now, because this is where the rubber meets the road. And always at TrendWatching, yes, we want to give you the trend, we want to give you the shift, but then we want to think about what does this mean for you and how should you respond? So how should you respond to this world of glass box brands? The bottom line answer always comes down to this. In a world where your internal culture is increasingly becoming a part of your brand, a part of the way consumers feel about you, the answer in a nutshell has to be make positive changes to that internal culture and then tell the world about them. Okay? Essentially, the bottom line is that simple. Make those positive changes, tell the world that story. Okay? Why in the end does that have to be the answer? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I mean, this world of glass box brands, this idea that now people can look deep inside your organization, see your culture, and that's part of your brand, is pretty scary. It feels pretty scary because, you know, we all know that inside any organization, there's going to be flaws. The culture is going to be imperfect. The thing is, of course, consumers, customers know that too. They acknowledge that too. They don't expect the culture they see when they look inside your organization to be perfect. What they will expect is for you to be moving in the right direction, to be taking the things that are not right, often the legacy things that are not right, that are built on values of another time, and changing them. Okay, if you're moving in the right direction, that will be enough to make them feel positive about you as an organization and as a brand. And the second big thing here is, yes, it's a scary thought. It should also be a deeply empowering, deeply exciting thought, because of course the opportunity here is huge, and we must focus on the opportunity. We mustn't overlook it. In this world where internal culture is a part of your brand, or is increasingly becoming a part of your brand, there's a huge opportunity. Because if you can make those positive changes, and if you can tell a compelling story about them, those stories can become incredibly potent marketing assets, incredibly potent stories that enhance the consumer's view of who you are and of your brand. Okay, and that's something that you can control. You can make positive changes. You can tell compelling stories about them. You can control those aspects of this picture. And as I say, those stories can become your most valuable just touch points with the consumer, your most valuable marketing assets for 2018 and beyond. So what I want to do is look now at some examples of other businesses, other brands that are doing just that, that are making powerful, meaningful changes to their internal culture, and then turning those changes into compelling stories that let the outside world know what they're doing, and turn those stories into powerful, compelling aspects of the brand themselves. I've broken the examples up into 3 categories. The first I want to look at is people, because of course, your internal culture is embodied, it's lived every day by your people. So if you want to think about making meaningful changes to your internal culture, doing something good for your people, the staff who live your organization, is a great first step. So let's have a look at a few examples of what I mean by that. Here's a very straightforward one to start with. This is IKEA in India. In March 2017, we saw them just update their parental leave policy. So across the board in India, if you become a new parent, you're eligible for 6 months paid leave. They also did some stuff where you could extend it, and they're also planning to open a range of daycare centers, and they're helping to train and accommodate the needs of employees who become parents in new ways. So just a very straightforward example there from IKEA in India. We don't care about the legislation. We don't care about, the statutory requirement. If you become a new parent as an employee of IKEA in India, 6 months paid parental leave. It's something good for our people. But you can see, I hope, even with this first example, how in a world of glass box brands, in a world where people can see right inside your culture, where employees will be blogging about your culture, writing about it, live streaming about it, all of that, that becomes a powerful aspect of the brand itself. It's going to change the way the end consumer feels about you as a brand, okay, and change it positively, and encourage them to feel that this is an organization I want to engage with. Their values align with mine. They tell a positive story about me. They're helping to make the world better. Okay, you can see just potently with this example how a move like this, which is internal, impacts on the brand, the public-facing brand that the end customer sees. Okay, let's have a look at this intriguing one. This is Yahoo. They did something really interesting in May 2017. They just introduced a scheme designed to utilize, really to make the most of the strengths of neurodiverse employees. And by neurodiverse, I mean people with autism, with ADHD, with dyslexia, with an obsessive compulsive disorder. So Yahoo set up something called the Neurodiversity Employee Resource Group. And they just took a raft of measures to help make the lives of those employees better and also get the most from them. So, they asked them about their needs, their requirements, how they can be supported. They started training managers to better draw the unique strengths out of these employees. And we know that these employees can have special unique strengths that like others are less likely to have. So again, just a powerful move that is the right thing to do, is totally internally facing, is about making life better for the people at Yahoo. But you can see also subtly changes the way we all outside, the end consumer, feels about this business. And in so doing, just changes your view of the brand, okay? Subtly changes your view of Yahoo as a brand. Here's a really nice angle on doing something for your people. What about incentivizing constructive behavior? Okay, if you don't want to just, by essentially central order, make changes, how about incentivizing them to make positive changes for themselves? So this is True Worth Wellness, again in India. They did something very interesting. They set up a scheme where employees can essentially earn points for following their own health and wellness plans. This is a trend actually that we've tracked at TrendWatching for a very long time. Some of you will know that, called currencies of change, all about incentivizing constructive, healthy behaviors. What True Worth Wellness did is essentially apply that trend within their organization. So, you know, go for your run, do all the exercises you said you'd do your sit-ups, earn points that are tracked through a platform, and then you can use those points to be exchanged for products, for rewards inside the organization. So not just ordering a change, but incentivizing your own people to make positive changes or stick to behaviors that they want to stick to, but which can be hard to stick to. Okay, so 3 really interesting angles there on making internal changes that are all about making the lives of your own people better. And I'd just love you to think, how could we inside our organization make a meaningful, positive change focused at the people inside our organization, and then turn that into a compelling story? I mean, we've seen, you know, you can dive into the database and I'll tell you more about that at the end. We've seen a whole raft of examples focused on parental leave recently. Spotify, a whole range of brands have made changes, positive changes to their parental leave policy, and turned those changes into really compelling stories that they told the outside world, that said to the outside world, look who we are, look what we believe as a brand, okay? We want you to know that this is who we are as an organization. How could you do that? It could be parental leave, but there are a whole range of changes you could make focused on your people that you can then turn into a compelling story. Okay, second I want to look at processes. This slide actually says people, so it's the wrong slide, but I want to look at processes. If you don't want to change, make a positive internal change focused on people, another really interesting angle to look at is the processes you use, the way you work as an organization, the traditions, the habits, the rules that you have in place. They're all part of your culture too. How can you change, make positive changes to those internal processes and turn that into a positive story to tell the outside world? Here's a really interesting example to kick off with. What about doing something that just putting in place a new way of working or a new rule, or in this case, some new equipment that helps make the workplace just a safer, healthier, better place to be. So this is Carrefour, the supermarket chain. This is actually in Poland. They recently launched a new uniform that's designed specifically to use new technologies to protect the staff, particularly the staff who work on their tills, from like colds and flus and infectious illnesses of that nature. And it uses a special technology called Cotton X, which uses kind of copper to attract these germs and keep them away from the employees, okay? So just a very simple change, straightforward in nature. I mean, the technology isn't simple, but it's straightforward in nature change that makes the workplace a safer, healthier place to be, okay? But again, you can see making that kind of change to your internal processes subtly changes what the end consumer, when they get to hear about it, which they will in an age of glass box brands, subtly changes what they feel about you as a brand. This is an interesting one, okay? What about making changes that encourage your people to work in a healthier, more balanced way, that just create a healthier, more balanced workplace? So we saw earlier on in the people category, making changes to incentivize healthy, constructive behaviors. What about making changes that just make the workplace itself healthier and more balanced? So this is Quartet Communications. They're a Japanese advertising agency, actually. And what they did is they introduced essentially new rules, new measures that rewarded employees for working less overtime. Yes, you heard right, less overtime. So the employees that worked less overtime got higher rewards than those who worked more overtime. And they did that because they said, look, we just want to encourage a healthier, more balanced workplace where people are not working endlessly long hours, because that's not healthy and that's not good for the people and it's not good for us as a business. And through this policy, they actually managed to reduce the average number of overtime hours worked from about 9.5 per month to 3.5 per month. So again, you know, it has echoes of that previous example around incentivization, how can you put measures in place that encourage a healthier, more balanced way of working? That's another really interesting angle when you start to think about your processes. It's not about new technologies and new equipment that make the workplace safer and healthier. What about new rules and new measures and new policies, essentially, that make the workplace more balanced? And here's a really interesting, intriguing one that I just wanted to throw in. You all know who you're looking at. This is Arianna Huffington. She's recently launched her new business, Thrive Global. It's a platform and a business, a brand that's all about health and wellness. But she recently revealed that she uses, or the business uses, a pretty intriguing trick and a very simple tool just to make use of emails healthier and more productive. So what happens here is that when an employee goes away on vacation, if someone from the outside the business emails that employee in the very conventional standard way, they get a bounce back response that says, this person is not in the office. You know, they get the conventional out of the office, but it actually also says, this email is not being auto forwarded. It's not, the person you're trying to get to is not going to see it. If you want to reach this person, please email them again when they return. Okay, and then crucially, a tool, an email management tool, deletes that email. Okay, and the thinking is this, that either the person sending the email will find someone else inside the organization if they really need to, or if it's not that important, they'll just get back to the person when they get back from their holiday. I guess if it's really not important, they'll just forget all about it. The email is deleted. And what this does very simply, says Arianna Huffington, is deal with that massive email backlog that you get when you come back from your vacation, which she quite rightly says can be a source of stress when you're on vacation, just knowing that you're going to come back to it. And actually, more or less, what happens usually is you end up going into your emails on holiday, kind of ruining your holiday a little bit, so you don't come back to this massive email backlog. This simple tool and this simple measure totally kills that problem. So again, you can see just a very simple, straightforward change to internal processes, to ways of working. But Arianna Huffington is extremely smart operator, and she was extremely keen to tell the whole world this story. She did it in August 2017, and it was reported all over the place. The reason she was so keen to let everyone know that Thrive Global works like this, I would contend at least, is at least partly anyway, because we live in an age of glass box brands, because internal culture is increasingly part of the brand. What she is trying to do is go, look, our internal culture is healthy, it's balanced, it's all about balanced, productive, constructive ways of working. She knows that that changes the way the end consumer of Thrive Global feels about the brand. It becomes part of those emotional associations that are a brand. So this internal change, in the end, impacts on the end consumer too. It changes the way they feel about that brand. So again, I would just love you guys to think about this as an angle when it comes to making those positive changes to your internal culture. Yes, do something great for your people. Think about your processes too. How could you put new policies in place that make the workplace more balanced? How could you bring new technologies or new equipment to bear to make the workplace safer, healthier, more productive, more sustainable, more effective? How can you use simple, straightforward changes like the email change just to do something, just make one simple change to your processes that really impacts on the way it feels to work for your business? In an age of glass box brands, those can become highly compelling stories. Okay, think about that Arianna Huffington story. Highly compelling stories that get told over and over again and that change the way consumers feel about you as a brand. Can become a really powerful marketing campaign, much more powerful perhaps than the traditional marketing campaign about, look, we're amazing, we have low prices, we're really exciting, our stores look great, all of that stuff. Okay, this could be the really compelling marketing campaign of 2018 if you do something great and you tell a compelling story about it. Okay, let's look really quickly last at values. Yes, people see your processes. Yes, they see your people. But really summing all of that up, what they see is your values, who you are and what you believe as an organization. And they see those things embodied in the way you act and the way you treat people, the way you sound, the way you feel. Okay, so let's have a look at how you can make some positive changes that talk to consumers in the end, that speak to them really about who you are as an organization and where your values are. This is a great example to point out that, of course, local context means so much. Local context is everything when you're making these positive changes to your internal culture. This is Time Hotels Management in Dubai. They recently opened a hotel, April 2017, called the Asma Hotel. And the big change here for them is that this hotel is going to be all about the empowerment of female staff. It will be managed by a female member of staff. 80% of the staff will be women. And there's going to be lots of training and new initiatives and programs in place to help promote those women through the organization and lead them into senior roles. Now, if you're a hotel chain operating in Europe or the US and you make huge fanfare out of the idea that one of your female members of staff is going to lead one of your hotels, quite rightly, you're going to be shot down in flames, right? People are going to say, why aren't half your hotels led by your senior women? In Dubai, or a much more traditional society, this is still bold. This is a revolutionary change. This is a meaningful step to change internal culture, and it works, okay? And it will change the way people feel about this brand. It's a totally internally facing change, but it speaks volumes about, look who we are as a brand, look what we believe, look where our values are, and it's going to change the way consumers feel about engaging with that brand. Facebook, you don't have to have billions of dollars to spend to make positive changes that speak of your values, but if you do have, it helps. This is Facebook. In July 2017, they announced plans to build what they're calling the Willow Campus, which is a sort of essentially a big village with 1,500 homes and some shops and other services in Menlo Park. And they're doing this to deal with the now very well documented housing crisis in Silicon Valley. Like, the price of houses in Silicon Valley, we all know, has gone berserk. That's partly because of the high salaries there. And we all know that Facebook is partly responsible for that. They are building this village to help deal with that crisis. The homes are going to be available both to Facebook staff and the general public. So again, just a really powerful change that speaks volumes about their values. And last, I had to hit you with this example, probably my favorite example in the entire report. How bold can you be when it comes to making a change that speaks of your values? How about this bold? This metro rail company in India recently, in May 2017, began for the first time employing transgender women on its trains. It's a huge change for them. These women in India often face all kinds of prejudice, all kinds of preconceptions, and they said, look, we want to make this change to just change the way that these women are looked at, the way they're treated. We want to be part of a positive step forward on this front. So they're going to be serving food and drinks on our trains. They're going to be looking after customer care. There's 23 of them initially, but there will be more. A hugely bold move for an Indian rail company like this to make a massive statement, a massively progressive statement, flying in the face of much criticism. This is who we are as a brand. This is what we believe. This is what we stand for. So this is what we're going to do. Okay? And that's going to change the way people feel about this organization's brand. It's going to become part of their brand. For some people, let's be honest, it will change it negatively. For people who hold prejudice, it will change their view of the brand negatively. For others, it will change it positively. This business is doing it because it's what they believe in. So again, how can you make changes that speak volumes about your internal values, about the values you hold dear? It could be your most powerful marketing play of 2018. Okay, I've given you a super quick, reasonably quick, I hope, snapshot. Please do dive in. read the full report. It's there inside your premium service. You'll see more examples, you'll see more statistics, more detail on the drivers. Keep tracking the evolution of this trend inside premium. This trend, Glassbox Brands, it really builds on ideas that we've been tracking for a long time, primarily via the trend insider trading. So if you go to the premium service, you check out, you filter for insider trading, you can see many of the examples or all of the examples I've presented to you today, and we'll be continuing to update that with examples as we see them, and you alongside us can track the evolution of that trend. I've also written a good deal about this trend, this shift from the black box to the glass box on LinkedIn, and I'll be writing more in the weeks ahead as we continue to roll out TrendWatching Quarterly number 3 to you guys and to the public. So if you want to check out more, see some of my responses to the business stories of the day and how they're relevant here, go and find me on LinkedIn, you'll find more there. And get to work. Please take this trend, run with it, apply it inside your organization. Some of you may be thinking already, but what can I do? You know, I can't make meaningful changes to the culture. I'm not at that level inside my organization. I don't have the power to do that. What you can do today, what you can start doing today, is to build a movement inside your organization to get this shift, this profound shift in the nature of what it means to be a brand on the radar of your colleagues, to build a movement that eventually leads to change. Okay, so start talking about it, share the briefing, share the report, make a tiny change to the way you work and tell that as a story, a positive story to your colleagues. Start building momentum that will eventually lead to change. Remember, in this world of Glassbox Brands, it's all about compelling stories. Yes, you have to make the change. Well, it's not all about compelling stories. Yes, you have to make the change, and organizational change is hard. Then you have to tell a compelling story to the outside world about that change. And once upon a time, telling compelling stories to the outside world was the job of the marketing department. In a world of Glassbox Brands, you will be much more effective if every team, if every department is empowered to tell their own compelling stories about the changes they're making. Okay, the people who are best placed to tell those stories are the people making the changes and the people impacted by them. That's why in this report I talk more about this idea of every department is the marketing department. In a world of Glassbox Brands, diffuse your marketing function all the way through your organization. I mean, that's a huge subject that we could talk for another hour just about that, but it's I think fundamental to how you roll this out organizationally. Okay, empower all your teams to tell their own stories. And last, and I've used that word just now, empowering, view this as a massive opportunity. Yes, a world of Glassbox Brands is scary, but it's also one of the biggest opportunities, you know, inside the consumer arena right now. Transparency is scary. Yes, it's an amplifier of your faults, of your weaknesses, of the failings inside your culture. But don't forget, don't make the mistake of forgetting, as some business leaders might be prone to, that it's also an amplifier of everything that's great about you inside your organization, of the things you do well, of the positive changes you are making, of the wins, the epic wins you have, of the people who are thrilled to be working for you. Okay, it's an amplifier of all those things too. If you can identify those positive stories, and if you can start to make internal changes that bring more of those stories to light, and then you can turn those into compelling stories that other people actively want to consume, then you are really riding this shift, and you are riding a deeply powerful shift in the nature of what it means to be a brand. You're changing the way you do your marketing fundamentally in a way that totally aligns with massive changes out there on the part of consumers. So be empowered, see it as an opportunity, get excited, make those changes, and win in this world of Glassbox Brands. Thank you so much for listening. That's more than enough from me. I'm going to get back to work on the 2018 trend report with the team here at TrendWatching, because you know and we know that we are about to send that to you in November this year. So we're hard at work on that right now. Watch out for it coming in November. That's more than enough from me. Thank you so much for listening. Love to hear your comments on my email, david@trendwatching.com. But for now, signing off. Thank you.